Hello, my name is Ken Mejia Beal, and I'm the chair of the Democratic Party of DuPage County. And tonight we have a very special guest, Representative Deb Conroy. Deb Conroy has been a state representative, one of the first Democrats elected in DuPage, and now she is running to be chair of DuPage County. So we are excited to have her. Good evening, Representative Conroy. How are you doing tonight?
Good evening, Ken, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We're going to jump right in because I want everyone to know as much as they can about you. For the folks that do not know you, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to get involved in politics?
Well, that's a double-edged sword of a question right there. I decided to get involved. I didn't necessarily like the part about the politics that you had to do in order to become involved. But Ken, I'm a mother of 4 amazing grown sons now. I raised my kids here. They went to school in DuPage County. They had a lot of trials and strains growing up because their dad was very ill. Because of that, we didn't have a lot of extra money. But we always, as a family, wanted to give back to our community. And so I'm an artist by trade, and I started working, trying to help a charity raise money for kids with special needs, ECAF in Elmhurst, and we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for kids with special needs. And that led me to run for school board, where we had a real serious issue with our kids with special needs, our 18 to 22-year-olds in the transition program. And I, through that fight, met some amazing women, and we kind of led a charge to make sure that those kids were put in the right facility. They had the right building to be able to flourish in. We won that fight. And then through that, I was approached and asked to run for state representative. And it wasn't something that was ever on my radar, but it gave me some pause. And I realized that, sometimes life throws you curves that you can't control. And so I learned, not through choice, to be quite a fighter. When I was 31 years old, I lost my best friend in the world to breast cancer. And back then, the insurance company said, I quote, "Her life was not cost effective enough to pay for a bone marrow transplant."
Wow.
So back then I had no idea. I had, 3 small children, and I raised $67,000 to pay for a bone marrow transplant. And we were able to have her in our lives for 2 more years. So I realized when I was approached to run that I could take this fight. I could, at the state level, fight in the entire state for kids with disabilities, or fight insurance companies to make sure that no one ever had to go through what I went through with my friend. And that was why I made the decision to run.
Wow. And what are some of your legislative accomplishments that you are the most proud of in your time as a state representative?
It's always a tough question for me because I've been very privileged. 2 of the first bills I passed that were fights. One was I passed the first ever government consolidation bill for DuPage County that had never been done before. That was a little bit tricky because it taught me the realities of the diversity of our state. And at first it was supposed to be a government consolidation for the entire state. Well, the reality is that my downstate colleagues at the time relied very heavily on some of their smaller layers of government. So we focused just on DuPage, and we got that done. And then I put civics in high schools. And back then we weren't teaching civics. And I thought my kids weren't getting it. I thought we needed civics in school. And so back then we didn't have the money in the budget for the training. So I actually did a public-private partnership through McCormick Foundation, and we found the money to pay for the teacher training. So we were able to get that done. So, I started out very early on learning to think outside the box. And then my next challenge was we are the first state to cover insurance for PANDAS, which is pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep throat.
Wow.
And we call it Charlie's Law. And I was privileged to meet a young man who I consider to be a hero, and his name is Charlie Groby. And Charlie has been struggling with this, and now insurance has to pay for the treatment so that Charlie can continue to be an amazing football player and successful young man, instead of struggling without being able to have the resources. You know, their families would have lost their home and many other things in order to try to pay for that. So those are some of the things, you know, I mean, my life has kind of put a path in front of me that I followed. And my boy's dad had kidney disease, and he needed a kidney transplant a few years ago. Well, after many, many years of being ill. And I was fortunate enough to have the privilege to donate to him, because my boys, you know, when you donate a kidney, you're not saving one life. I said it was saving 5, because my boys had a lot more golf to play with their dad. And so after that process, we were very fortunate, and it was a miracle, saved his life, and he's doing fantastic now. I also realized that as a living donor, insurance can discriminate against you. It can discriminate against you for health insurance and for life insurance. So we changed that, and we did the Living Donor Bill of Rights, and you can no longer do that in the state of Illinois. So now, you know, it's one of the passions in my life to make sure that people understand that being a living donor, you only need 1 kidney. So being a living donor is, it's not difficult. It's a very safe surgical procedure now. So those are a few of the things. You know, I mean, we've had a lot of trials and tribulations in the House over the last 10 years. We went through the Me Too phase, which was very difficult. I personally had a story that my choice was to deal with it kind of privately behind the scenes, and it was blown up in the press and in the public, and that was very difficult. And you know, I dealt with it, I got through it, and I committed to changing the culture in Springfield. And I worked alongside Representatives Ann Williams and Kelly Burke, and behind the scenes held meetings with women all over the Capitol from every different you know, employment category. And we heard stories from women, and we made changes. People lost their jobs, the culture changed, and we continued to fight that. And Ann Williams and Kelly Burke and I also founded the first Women's Caucus. And that's something I'll always be very proud of, because we have a majority of women in the House currently. And, you know, people say, well, what's a woman's issue? And in my opinion, every issue is a woman's issue. And as we know, currently in Illinois, something that we stand very proud with as women, hand in hand, is that we protect a woman's right to have full health care. And so that's some of the things, as well as I am very privileged to chair the Mental Health and Addiction Committee, and that has become my life's work, and I'm very proud of that.
As you should be. That was a lot. We recently saw the United States Supreme Court overturn 50 years of precedent in the Dobbs decision. Where does that leave women here in Illinois?
Fortunately, in Illinois, women are protected. We are protected, but we're surrounded by states that don't protect women. We will continue to do that. In 2018, you know, when I first came in, Ken, I was the first Democrat in DuPage. And at that time, 10 years ago, we were the second reddest county in the country. In 2018, I was joined by an amazing group of female legislators in DuPage County. Those women came in, and together we all fought very, very hard and made sure that we secured, if Roe was overturned as it was, that would not affect us in the state of Illinois. And that is where it stands today. Now, in saying that, I'm very proud of that, and I will do everything I can to continue to protect that. But we have to understand, we can only protect it as long as we have a Democratic majority in the House, the Senate, a Democratic governor, and a Democratic Supreme Court. So I hope people understand how important this next election really is. Lives depend on it.
Many lives, especially with our states surrounding us and our women here. So
absolutely,
lots of work to do. And speaking of work and priorities, what are some of your priorities when you do become the next chairperson of DuPage County?
Well, Ken, I'll tell you, what a privilege. I mean, we haven't had a Democrat in a century, and it's never been a woman. I would
Wow.
tell you that, I have a lot of things that I want to do. Number one, I want to be a full-time county board chair because I'm a full-time legislator, and there's so much privilege in terms of leadership at that level that you can get involved in. And I really want to dig in. And, public safety is a huge issue. We want to make sure that we know that recently, Attorney General Bob Berlin came into the safety committee, and he explained that crime in DuPage County has gone down, something we should be very proud of. Through the work I've done with the state, I want to maintain that. I want to make sure it stays that way, as well as continue the work I've done at the state level to make sure that our first responders, our police, our fire, all of them have the mental health, well-being, and support that they need so that they can continue to do the amazing work that they're doing. Education in DuPage County is an amazing thing. People move here for that education. I want to make sure that we maintain that for our families. And not only just education, but the way that we care for and provide for special education is incredibly important as well. And people move here for that as well. DuPage County, I've had the privilege of representing a district that has the most diversity in all of the county. And it really represents kind of the way I think our county is going to look in the next several years. And I want everyone to feel welcome. And I want to be sure that we have the support that we need for that. And I want to be sure that we make sure that we have affordable housing. We currently do not have any affordable housing anywhere in DuPage County. And these are things that I think need to be priorities and will be when I'm chair. And I think mental health and addiction services are something that everyone I talk to, no matter what, when I'm knocking on doors, whether it was while I was state rep or now running for county board chair, it's a conversation that everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And we have a moral obligation to make sure that, our mental health and our addiction services are there and that we provide support. I worked very hard to secure $5 million for DuPage County, along with some of my female legislative colleagues, to open one of the first intake facility in the state. And that will allow folks who are struggling with their mental health or addiction they will no longer go to jail. They'll go to this facility, they'll receive wraparound services. This is what we need to do in the entire state. And I'm so excited to be a part of that. It was exciting to be able to help secure that money. We're still working to get that done. The money is there. They filled out the paperwork, and I'm so excited to be a part of seeing that open and continuing to make sure that we care for all of our residents.
And we appreciate that. And something I've said over and over again, when folks are running for office, you get a lot of promises, but when you look at your track record, you've done a lot of good work right here in DuPage that we are very grateful for. I'm going to move to another topic and something I'm curious about. This spring, you faced some serious threats when it came to legislation you filed. Can you tell us a little bit of what happened with that and just kind of the outcome of that?
Yeah, it was a very difficult time for my family, for my staff, for myself. What happened was I filed a bill for the DuPage County Health Department. The bill was it was a data bill, basically. So currently, the way that data is disseminated is at the state level, and then it's sent out to the county. So like when we're talking, for instance, about the opioid crisis, the opioid data currently would be delivered to the county 2019 data. We'd receive it about 2022. So this bill would have allowed us to get it and disseminate it ourselves so we could get it in real time and really know where we have the core of the issues and make the differences in real time. You know, anytime that you file a piece of legislation, it goes into current statute, and the current statute that it went into included the fact that, you know, our top public health official and that was Dr. Arwadi at the time, and Dr. Ezike have the legal authority to declare a quarantine if needed. So, and that legislation that is current law goes back to smallpox, you know, that type of thing. So what ended up happening was it was put into a political blog and it was misrepresented. I had an attorney send a letter to, it was the Illinois Review, and explain that they were putting out misinformation that could be very dangerous. And so they kind of walked it back, they stopped. Within 3 hours, the DuPage Policy Journal's headline was, Conroy wants to open concentration camps for the unvaccinated. The way the DuPage Policy Journal works, and to me, this is almost more important than any of this, is that you pay them to do articles. You pay them to do 3 articles. Someone hired them to write articles on me saying that I wanted to open concentration camps for the unvaccinated. That turned into weeks and weeks of something I would never want anyone to ever go through. My life was threatened. My staff had to be moved to an undisclosed location. We had police involved from the state police on down. There was a threat that went out that said that we need to do what we were going to do in Michigan, and we need to storm the Capitol and take out anyone we need to take out to get to Conroy. Because of that, I couldn't go to Springfield. I wasn't able to do my job and go out in public unless the police were with me. That became an issue because who wants you coming to a coffee shop with the police in your coffee shop? It's not really good for business.
No, it's not.
And the reality, Ken, and the hardest part for me, when you start to understand it a little bit, it was done during the entire time that we were getting petitions to run for office. They were trying to scare me. And on top of it, I had Republican colleagues who stood by and watched. They watched while I was living a very difficult reality, something I never thought I would ever have to deal with. I have staff members that literally needed to go for counseling because they were so frightened but I would say one of the, sometimes we have moments in our lives where we can actually make a real difference. And there were individuals who could have stopped it and they chose not to, including my opponent, who doubled down on it, made some statements, false statements about the legislation. My family watched literally, and we felt as though he walked past our home while it was burning and threw gasoline on it. He could have stopped it. Many Republicans could have, and they chose not to. So I am going to do my best to make sure that it never happens to someone else, because that's where we are in our political reality, is that because of the rhetoric that Donald Trump has basically set a fire and made okay, we all have to be very careful. And we have to be responsible about what we say, because words matter. And if my Republican colleagues could understand what it was like to go through that, I would like to think that they would have never done it.
I would like to think that also. I do want to thank you so much for being so candid about this with me this evening. I really appreciate it, and I think our viewers appreciate it also, as misinformation and disinformation are going to be really big issues in this election and moving ahead, especially with pay to play journalism. I'm using quotation marks there. So thank you for sharing that with us. Is there anything else you would like our voters to know about you?
I think for me, I think it's important that what I believe the Democratic Party is about today, the Democratic Party cares about people, all people. We don't judge people. We're not out there telling lies for political gain. I believe that, I'm running for my dad. I'm running for Democrats, 30 years ago in DuPage, who asked for a Democratic ballot and they had to go in the back and find one. We live in a beautifully blue Democratic state. I have worked very hard with amazing people from the top down, and we have those relationships. And having a Democratic chair and having a Democratic majority on the county board will help DuPage County become the leader it should be in our state. DuPage is the second largest county. We have the ability to lead in so many ways, and I want to be part of that leadership.
When I knock doors for you, I tell folks, a vote for Deb Conroy is a vote for you. It's a vote for your family. It's a vote for your security. So I'm a huge advocate for the fact that you have the experience and the leadership to really lead for all DuPage residents, and I greatly appreciate that. My last question of the evening is always a fun one. So my question for you this evening is, if a song played every time you exited a room,
oh gosh,
what would that song be and why?
Oh gosh, I raised 4 boys, right? So I mean, it's probably I don't know. It'd probably be like "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" or something. I mean,
okay, that works.
I mean, honestly, I don't know.
You're
that's
leaving
kind of
the
funny.
room. You're leaving the room and you're going to the ball game. I like that
There you
answer.
go.
That works.
Yeah.
Yes. So our viewers, if they want to volunteer, if they want to donate, if they want to get active with your campaign, please let us know where we can go.
Absolutely. So you can go to our website, you can go to our Facebook page, and we have an Act Blue account. You can send a Facebook message and we can get back to you. We're looking for volunteers all up and down the ticket for, to make sure that we maintain Blue Page. I'm very proud of
Absolutely.
the fact that, we are now called Blue Page, and we want to continue that. So yeah, so reach out, to the DuPage Democrats through Ken, and do what you can. And this year, when you go to vote, bring 3 friends. Bring 5.
Let's bring 5.
Okay, let's bring 5.
Let's bring 5.
5 works too. Yes. 5 works too. And you know what? Vote early. Vote by mail is so much easier now. It's so much easier now. And we have so many people, we have been doing phenomenal work in terms of getting that vote out early in DuPage County. I'm very proud of that.
Yes, it's an exciting time to be in DuPage County and to be a Democratic voter. I want to thank all of you for joining, and anyone who's listening or watching us. Thank you so much. Please remember to vote for Representative Deb Conroy in October or November. And thank you for joining Chair Chat. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Good night, everyone.